every time somebody interacts with something that I created for PlanetScale, I want them to be able to walk away having felt like I became a better engineer, I became smarter, I learned something new, regardless of whether they ever buy a database from PlanetScale.
I'm joined today by Ben Dicken, a developer educator at PlanetScale. You've probably seen one of his articles because they have blown up and they're absolutely amazing. We dive into Ben's background, his process, and we talk about what you could learn as a DevTools founder thinking about content. Your content has been really blowing up on Twitter, but it's just really good. It's not that like clickbait stuff. It's like you look at it, the more you dig into it, the more effort it's obvious you put in and the more we learn. And so I wanted to ask a little bit about your background because I know it's quite unusual.
Yeah. So I have a bit of an interesting path with so right now I'm a developer educator at PlanetScale. And a lot of what I do, like you said, is creating content that is engaging to developers and also meeting with customers, doing customer trainings. So some more like practical hands-on stuff. But my background is an interesting combination because I started my career as a database engineer at a different database startup. So I was in that for a little while. And then I actually went into academia for a little while. So I was a faculty member at a computer science department teaching everything from intro programming to operating systems and system software. And so from that is where I went to PlanetScale. So I kind of had this interesting combo of like, I've done formal teaching and learned all about formal teaching methodologies, right? Training the next generation of programmers, as well as being an engineer myself. And now this, in my head, it's kind of like the perfect job because I get to blend my like experience of teaching. But also one of the things I had to learn coming to PlanetScale is I have zero marketing training, right? And so this is like kind of a marketing role, right? So you have to be able to like know, okay, I want to create excellent, high quality blogs or videos or documentation or just general like resources for engineers to use our product. But how do I do that with excellence, but also in a way that's like engaging and draws people and attracts people to your product, your website, whatever the case may be. And so, yeah, it's an interesting combination. It's an interesting path that I've been on, but I'm actually really thankful for it because it's given me all the skills that I need to hopefully do really well at this. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure you probably like, for like just everyone listening here is going to start just hitting up every computer science department and trying to hire the lecturers.
It's very, I mean, it was unique because, typically what you think of in a computer science faculty is like, I was way below the average age of the faculty there, which is fine, right? Like, but a lot of people that in academia are, have gotten a PhD and they're sort of lifelong academics and all this. And I was an academic for a while, for a couple of years. But it was kind of a unique placement for me, at least at that point in my career. So.
Okay, so you're saying that there's maybe the average computer science department is not filled with Bens that people can just start hiring.
I mean, you can look for them, go for it. Yeah.
Could you maybe just like, before we dive in too much, your stuff has been doing, from the outside, seems like it's just been driving an absolute ton of traffic to PlanetScale, probably from Twitter, but also then I think when you read it, you're like, whoa, these guys, this is incredible. Like the caching blog, that was the one that really blew me away. I think, I don't know how I discovered it, but it is like, it's actually not even an article, it's almost like a game or like a teaching resource. Mm-hmm. It's interactive. It's not just an article. It's got like these incredible animations, but then the explanations are really good as well. There's not even animations, like actual like reactive animations. Like you click and see how long each request was based on like whether it was cached or not and stuff like that.
Exactly, yeah.
Maybe you could share a little bit like just, seems like they've been very impactful.
Yeah, they have been very impactful. So the first, before I started writing these for PlanetScale, I've done some stuff with interactive articles. I have a couple old ones on my personal blog and some other work that I've done in the past. But the first one for PlanetScale it's about a year ago. I was just experimenting for fun because I'm a nerd and I just like to code in my free time too. But with some visualizations for B trees, which are kind of like, if you know databases, that's like the most important data structure for databases. All of your indexes usually are built in B trees. So I was just experimenting with that for fun using D3.js. And eventually I was like, oh, I'm building all these cool interactive things. What if I could like integrate this into a blog? And it took a lot of work to make our blog like be able to support that. And when we finally published that, and it wasn't to align with a product launch or anything, it was just like a for fun side project I was doing. It did super well. Like you said, kind of blew up on Twitter. It was on the front page of Hacker News for a long time. It got like, I don't know, 80,000 page views in the first week or two, something like that. And so I'm like, okay, this is something I like and I had a lot of fun doing. And it's something unique. I mean, there are other people that do this. I draw inspiration from some other people like Sam Rose, or I'm not going to pronounce his name right, but Bartosz Szyszyński, something like that. There's a few other people that do these, in my opinion, even better than me, like interactive articles. But it's still very unique, and I kind of have my own unique style and twist to it and stuff. And so it worked. I'm like, well, if we can keep doing these, I'm happy to do them because I like them and they work. And so Sam, our CEO, also really liked it and realized like, hey, people really love these. They enjoy the excellent content. And I think the other thing too is like in this day and age, it's very easy to put out just an average blog, especially with AI, right? You can ask AI to write you a draft and then you tweak it a little bit and you can ship a whole blog in a couple of hours if you want to, right? But it's like, how do you separate yourself from just the massive amounts of average content or below average content that's out there? And this is one of the ways to do that. So anyway, we started continuing to do that. I've published a couple since then. I don't have one coming out every week because they take a long time to make. Each one is many, many hours of work. It's usually over the course of a month or two, not a month or two just dedicated to the blog, but coming back and forth to that blog. So yeah, they're really cool. I enjoy them. And I guess people like them. So.
And by the way, when you were saying that, the other creator it reminds me of is like, have you ever seen like Free Blue, One Brown?
Yes,
like,
I love him. Yeah. Really
like,
interesting. And he's different format on video, but a similar kind of thing where I actually listened to a podcast with him recently with Lex Friedman. He was on there like a couple years ago. So I was listening to an old episode, and he's similar in that like when he makes a video on something, he spends a long time. He dives deep, he reads papers, all this kind of stuff, and then he starts to formulate his ideas and put them into video. I may not go quite as deep as him, but it's similar. Like it takes a lot of research and planning and building these visuals to make them look good. So yeah.
Scaling DevTools is sponsored by WorkOS. If things start going well, some of your customers are going to start asking for enterprise features. Things like SSO, skim provisioning, role-based access control. These things are hard to build, and you could get stuck spending all your time doing that instead of actually making a great dev tool. That's why WorkOS exists. They help you with all of those enterprise features, and they're trusted by OpenAI, Vercel, and Perplexity. Here's what Kyle from Depot has to say about WorkOS.
We use WorkOS to effectively add all of the SSO and skim to Depot. So for us, we can effectively offer SSO and skim, and it's like 2 clicks of a button, and we don't ever have to think about it. It's like one of the best features that we can add to Depot, and it's super affordable, which effectively allows us to like break the SSO tax joke and essentially say like you can have SSO and skim as like an add-on onto your monthly plan. So it really allows smaller startups to essentially offer like that enterprise feature without a huge engineering investment behind it. Like it's literally, we can just use a tool behind the scenes and our life is exponentially easier.
Thanks again, WorkOS. Back to the episode.
And then sorry, it's just like really one side point, but this is not really about scaling a dev tool, but it's cool that like you've like somehow like, I feel like this is probably like the best. I can imagine if someone's like a college professor and they see this content, it's the kind of thing they would like actually want to share to their students, because it's probably like quite hard to find such good content because it just wouldn't make sense maybe in-house skills, like financially for someone to spend so much time as a teacher, but it does make sense as a marketing exercise. And it's like just bringing something cool to the world that exists because of like startups and I don't know, just.
Yeah, I mean, it's surprising to me because like there's even sometimes like people who I know who are really good engineers, right? Like it's not like, oh, they don't know anything about this stuff. They're good engineers, but they say like, hey, Ben, I read your blog and I like learned something new about processes or whatever, this or that, or it clarified things for me. And I'm like, wow, like it's not just about like, I try to write these blogs where, someone who's not that familiar, maybe someone who's not even in the tech space could read it and be like, okay, I learned some things. Like maybe there was parts that were confusing or whatever, but I learned stuff. But then also to try to provide value to someone who's like an engineer and maybe already knows like half of this stuff, right? But can you provide new perspective or again, the unique visuals to like reinforce concepts? And so that's makes me very happy when I can like both have someone who doesn't know much about it, read it and be like, wow, that was super interesting. And someone who's like an engineer that I respect and go like, wow, that was really great. Like I even learned something from that, you know? And I get that pretty often and I'm kind of surprised, but thankful for it. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so let's say someone's listening to this and they're like, okay, what's your process here, Ben? Like, how do you go about creating a great article?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So yeah, like I said, one, it takes, I think one, a lot of research, but also like you actually should care about like what you're writing about. And that's one of the things I'm thankful for at PlanetScale is, you know, my boss, Holly and Sam, they give me a lot of leeway to like come up with these creative ideas, right? Rather than just, you know, sometimes, hey, we need X, Y, or Z documentation or whatever. But then there's also freedom to be like, Ben, we trust you that like you're going to create something really interesting, really engaging, something that is going to reflect positively on our brand. And so that's what I get to do with some of these. Like, for example, another one that I wrote was one on IO devices and latency. So this is one where I simulate hard drive disks and solid state drives. And so this is one that we actually wanted to time with the launch of PlanetScale Metal, which was earlier this year. And initially we planned on launching that sort of late 2024. And I was like under a big time crunch to like get it written. And I was like cramming on this and it was fun, but like I was like having to push really hard for this deadline. And then we ended up actually postponing it to the next year. Not for bad reasons, it was for good reasons and strategic and all that. But what that meant is all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I have like a couple more months to just like work on this and really like make it good and refine it. And so I worked on other stuff, of course, in the meantime. But it was fun to be able to like, that one I was like really able to take my time because I could work on it for a couple days and then I could leave it alone for a while and come back and then work on it a little bit. And that's, I think, actually my favorite one because I think the visuals in that are the most interesting. And I think that's the one I've gotten the most positive feedback on. I know like sometimes you have a time crunch and sometimes you have to do something under a time crunch and sometimes you're not going to make interactive visuals. But I think one of the things to like my perspective, because I've been in an engineering role and I've been in a teaching role and now in this role is like, I genuinely think like, would an engineer want to read this? Because what at PlanetScale, like we're a dev tools company, we're a database company, right? And if you're in that space, like that's who you want to attract to your website or to your brand to learn more about your product, even if it's indirectly through like an article you're writing or something. And like, I think not enough people sit down and be like, I'm trying to help PlanetScale grow as a database company. Would a database engineer find this interesting? Or if you're building some other kind of dev tool, right? Would a DevOps engineer want to do this? Or would a front-end engineer want to read this? Is this going to provide educational value for them? Because one of the things that I really believe is like every time somebody interacts with something that I created for PlanetScale, I want them to be able to walk away having felt like I became a better engineer, I became smarter, I learned something new, regardless of whether they ever buy a database from PlanetScale. Hopefully they do, but I still want there to always just be like real educational value. And I think that comes through and then people start to respect your brand more and associate it with high quality content, talented engineering. And we have some of our engineers that publish blogs too. And some of them are like incredible writers. And I think encouraging your engineering team to like write about the interesting stuff that they're doing is also a great way to like build that reputation.
Curious, actually, when you work with engineers on writing, are there any kind of common themes that, you know, you bring from, you know, working as a lecturer, studying education, probably how like educational theory and stuff, or like, plus just doing it a lot. Is there anything that you kind of commonly say to people?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually funny. There's an engineer who we recently published a blog for now. He used to be at PlanetScale. His name is Vicent or VMG. He works at Cursor now. But he's actually one of the... Did you see that published?
Is he in Spain or something?
He's in Spain. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw him. I don't know. Yeah.
But he's actually like someone who I also really look up to as a writer because he is just, he's very smart. But he's actually also just like naturally very good at writing. Like I was reviewing one of his posts and I'm just like, I'm blown away at like how you're explaining so much, but you're also doing it in a way that is like accessible to someone, even if I'm not like super familiar with the project you're working on. And that is something that, it's hard. You can't just like teach it in a day, but I think it's actually extremely valuable, not just if you're in like a dev ed role, but like every engineer, if you learn to write really well, that can pay like huge dividends, right? Whether it's for your personal blog or to promote like the products that you're working on at your company. Because I think it's actually I would hope it's very fun to like you put all this effort into building a product. And then if you can learn to write really well about it, to like show off what you did and like all the cool engineering that went into that, that's something that's really cool. And that's something that I and my boss Holly are always trying to like encourage our engineers, like write about the cool stuff that you're doing, assuming you can talk about it, unless it's a secret project or something. Because it's like, hopefully like it's fun for you to reflect back on what you did, but also again, like the outside world, when they see something like that, that builds a positive association with your brand. Like, wow, this company has really talented engineers. Because when people come to PlanetScale, it's like, yes, they're buying our database product, but they're also kind of buying into just like, we have a lot of talent density in the company, right? People who have worked at huge, large scale databases. And so when you like kind of show like, hey, we have a very, very talented group of people, that builds trust. Like, these people know how to run databases. Like, look at all of this work that they're putting out. Like, I can tell they really know it. And so that's especially in the dev tool space, right? Because you're selling to other engineers and they want to know that you have an engineering team that has their back and is going to operate like whatever you're doing for them really well.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. And I feel like it's almost like, in a way, I feel like some engineers would be like, oh, okay, you've got these engineers that did this at X company. Like, oh, well, maybe I don't even care that much. Like, because I'm like, but then they start reading the article and it's like, oh, okay, this person really knows their stuff.
Yes.
Wow. Like, I don't know, because I feel like engineers are often quite like, oh, like that doesn't mean anything on its own. Like, kind of like,
right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And that's the other thing too, is as an engineer, I think it's easy to undersell how cool the stuff is that you worked on, which I think is what you're getting at there. For them, it's just like, oh, I just built this cool thing and it works and it does great. But like sometimes they don't realize like how many cool innovations that, went to building this database infrastructure or networking infrastructure in our case, right? Stuff like that. And so again, it's difficult because also if you're an engineer, you have all these engineering responsibilities. But whenever like it would be, I would be doing my job if I never had to write a blog post again, if I could just get everybody else to write cool blog posts about what they're doing, right? So anyway, I love that kind of stuff. And then again, I appreciate that kind of content from other companies as well.
Yeah. Do you have any tips actually on getting, helping engineers or like prodding engineers to write blog posts?
Yeah, nothing specific. I get like some of it is just, it depends on the person, right? Some people love to write. I was talking with our CEO, Sam Lambert, recently, or just yesterday, I think, about writing and good writers that are also engineers. And he was talking about early GitHub culture because he was a part of early GitHub. And like everybody, he said, was a good writer. Like every engineer there was good. And a part of that is because it was a remote first company where like when you were building a new product, designing something, like you by force had to be really good at writing, right? Because you're communicating over whatever, Slack these days or whatever it was back then. So, and we have a similar thing. Like we are a fully remote company. And so we actually do have a lot of good writers in the company, but a part of it is we're so focused on building products that sometimes it's hard to pull back and do the writing. So I think that's a part of it, is just like, how are you prioritizing, marketing is very important, but engineering, obviously, if you're a DevTools company, it should be the priority. And that's what we do at PlanetScale. Like we are a very 80-90% of our company is engineers, right? So like our marketing and sales is very small and nimble, and we focus on just building really good products. And so I think it would be cool though to like, and that every company has to decide this, like how much effort can you take from an engineer and put it into things like writing or creating documentation for your products. And that's another thing too. Like we ship very fast. And so sometimes it's hard for us to keep up with like documentation. Like how do we document all this great stuff that people are putting out? And so it's very cool when engineers are like good at writing and can document the stuff that they're building to show it off to the world.
Thinking about like what the kind of big takeaway for people listening, I feel like it's almost like that. You had that Paul Graham quote that was like the classic Paul Graham quote. Is like how to get good startup ideas. I got it. I'm probably gonna get us wrong and get like quote tweeted by the guy saying I didn't say that. Something. But anyway, like how to become good at startup ideas is to be someone who has good startup ideas, and it's to become someone who has good startup ideas.
Yes.
Which kind of sounds like a stupid quote when you first hear it, but like kind of makes sense in that it's not really like a shortcut or like just like you kind of just, it's hard, and like become a good writer, like write good content is like become someone that's good at writing is like just probably just the process of like hundreds of hours or whatever of just actually doing it, trying to make it better, getting feedback. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it just takes a lot of practice. And again, like my perspective is maybe a little different because I literally, like when I was a faculty member, I spent a lot of time with like, there was a consultant who would come into our department and talk about different teaching strategies and different ways of running a classroom and creating content, in an academic environment. But it's just like for so much of my life have already been thinking about like, how do you teach and how do you communicate? Not that I'm amazing at it, but just like I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. So maybe I need to write more about that, right? Writing more about like how to teach would be kind of a cool thing. There's something else I was going to say, but now I'm blanking on it.
Well, while you're blanking, can I just absolutely disagree with you that you definitely are amazing at it? And if you're not amazing,
well, thank you.
What hope have the rest of us got? So you are. But basically it was like how to write good content. You've been thinking about it for a very long time.
Yeah, it's thinking about it a long time. And the other thing too, like, and it just takes a lot of work. Like I spend a lot of time on these blog posts. Like just for example, when we did our Postgres GA a week or two ago, we released this processes and threads blog that I wrote soon after that. And like I was up super late, like on Monday night, like working on this, like, till 11:30 or whatever. I guess that's not super late for some, but for me, that's kind of late because I'm an early riser. And like, it just takes a lot of work. Like if you're actually going to build really effective stuff, and this doesn't just apply to like interactive blogs, this is just like being successful in your career in general at this point. Like it takes going above and beyond. Like the way I like to think about it is like the standard or the bar should be exceeding the bar. Like the bar shouldn't be meeting the bar. That sounds like an infinite cycle or whatever, but like that's the way that I think about it. Like every time I do something, it's like, okay, great, that blog was successful. I'm just like, okay, how can I do better the next time, right? Not like, oh, great, we did it. Right, now let's kick back and relax. So that's a part of it. Is like the mindset. Like how hard are you willing to work for this stuff?
Yeah. And that comes easy, I guess, because you like it and it's something.
Liking it makes it help a lot. Yeah.
Awesome. I think those are the two. It sounds like, are you happy with those as takeaways? As like,
yes, yeah. It's being passionate about it, working very hard at it, and then the working very hard at it. Also, the other thing I will say is like being someone who's willing to take input from other people. Like some people just kind of want to do their own thing and don't want feedback, don't want input. I am like constantly asking people like, review this, give me feedback, tell me how I suck, because I know something in here sucks. So tell me, and I want to make that better, right? Like some people have a hard time taking that kind of feedback, but I want people, I don't want people to yell at me per se. If you want to yell at me, fine. But I like want feedback because that's the only way you get better, because we all have blind spots.
Yeah, 100%. Why do you think that most blog posts just die in the ether? You talked about stuff like ask whether an engineer would like to read this. Mm-hmm. I think even that, like, it would be hard. Like, I feel like some people just have different standards of what, like some people are like, yeah, of course they would.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course they would. I wrote it, right? It's got to be great. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because in marketing, and I've learned everything I know about marketing from Holly. So shout out to Holly, but there's a lot of different ways to think about like what you're creating for your audience. So there's like the stuff that you create for general awareness, right? Which that's the stuff that you want to like have large reach, right? To go viral on Twitter or whatever, right? But like that's less about like educating someone specifically on your product, but just, again, it's that like building a reputation like of good engineering content. So for example, in our case, we do both MySQL and Postgres now databases. And so there's so much that can be written anywhere, or videos created or docs created about those two databases just in a vacuum, right? Because those are tech that have been both around for like 30 or 40 years. And there's a lot of interest just out there in the community, like regardless of, even if you're not a DBA, just like engineers who are like, oh yeah, I know my backend is Postgres, but I just use an ORM, so I don't even think about it that much or whatever.
Yeah.
Like there's so much to write about comparing and contrasting those, or about like the pitfalls of logical replication in Postgres versus replication in MySQL, like all of this kind of stuff. So I think, like you were talking about, like putting yourself in the seat of the engineer and thinking about, like, if you're someone who runs a web app, you probably use MySQL or Postgres. And what are all the things that I can talk about that engineers are probably going to either face this problem, then I can write about how you fix this problem, or, performance, at least for us, is a big thing. A lot of people come to us for performance because we have this PlanetScale metal with local attached disks in AWS and GCP. So I like to do a lot of benchmarking stuff. Like, in fact, there's something I'm working on right now where Postgres 18 just recently came out with some really cool new I/O improvements to asynchronous I/O. And a lot of people are talking about it. But what I am working on now is some detailed benchmarking comparing the previous version 17 to 18, so that instead of just talking about the concepts, like one of the things engineers want to see is like, how is this actually going to impact my database? And so I want to like provide an incredible resource for people to reference on like how that's going to affect things. So I think that's like, if you can get your head in the mindset of the customer and like, what are the problems that they're going to face? What challenges are they going to run into? And then like, if you can be the company that solves the problem, even if it was just like, hey, they Googled and they landed on your page and they found a blog post where you helped them solve this like key performance problem or this key reliability problem or whatever it is, all of a sudden they have this association in your head like, wow, PlanetScale must be really smart, right? Because they helped me solve this problem. So it's like hard. And maybe it's because I've been an engineer and I've been in education where like, maybe I have a little bit of an easier time getting in that mindset. But that's what I would encourage, is like, find people, your engineering teams, whatever, where like, what are the problems that our company's trying to solve? And then how do we communicate that and represent the company as that we're the company that helps you solve these problems?
Yeah, that's really helpful. Is there a visual aspect to it as well? Because it seems like, I think you even launched like an extension of like balls generate. Which we should clarify as like,
we should clarify that statement. Yeah.
I'll let you clarify that.
Yeah. Somehow I became known on Twitter as the bouncing balls guy, because I did, and some of them have just been kind of cheesy things, but like legitimately, like you're asking, like, is there something to the visual aspect of it? And I actually took a course in college, a data visualization course, and that was one of my favorite courses because it talked about the technical side of it, like how do you actually write the code to do data viz, but also like sort of the human perception and human psychology part of it, which is like, down to little things like what colors you should and shouldn't use together, or what kinds of things are engaging and what kinds of things aren't, what visuals represent things well. And I'm not saying I always follow those like formal principles, but ever since then, I've been very fascinated by visualizing things and like making things interactive. Like you see, even for like when I publish benchmarks, I often publish them with like some interactive visuals where you can compare and contrast benchmark results. So I think that's, again, one of the things that, for one, separates you from AI slop, right? Like, at least yet, I can't just write, hey, AI, like write something that simulates a CPU for me, and it can't just spit that out. It probably will be able to in a couple of years. But it also is just, maybe it's just a little bit of my style, right? And again, I've been inspired by other people, but that's something that, I get like feedback time and time again, that people appreciate that it's unique, or that they can sort of try things out themselves. And it attracts people, right? It attracts attention, but then that they can be attracted by that. But I actually want to also give value, not just like show visualizations and stuff. So have them stay for the actual value that you're providing.
Yeah. Come for the balls, stay for the understanding of databases.
Man, we need a better term for that,
Yeah, that's awesome though. Is Lou from TL Draw said like similar stuff around like make it visual, and I think like a lot of the stuff that really blew up for them, I mean, they have like some level of advantage here in that their product is just extremely visual. And
yeah. Or even you think about like people like Theo, if you ever watch his streams, right? Like, or his videos on YouTube, he's maybe not interactive, but he's constantly pulling up like Excalidraw instead of TLD draw, right? But and like diagramming things out and all of this kind of stuff. And that's like, he's way more successful than me, but like a niche that he's found of like, wow, engineers really enjoy like seeing things laid out visually. And he has a really good ability to like sort of on the fly, or maybe he's planned it ahead of time, but like come up with a good way of visualizing a concept. And so that's a really good practice if you're going to write, is also to learn how to, like visualize things in a unique way that will, provide more value than just writing about it.
Hell yeah. I'm excited. When's the course dropping?
When's the course dropping? Ooh, good question. You're giving me lots of ideas, Jack.
Sorry, Sam. Ben becomes a millionaire selling courses on.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, amazing. Okay, so we're going to try and do this so it's like podcast friendly, but I'm going to pull up an article that you've written. Yeah. Okay, so we have the I/O devices and latency article that Ben wrote in March 2025. And maybe you could kind of talk us through probably less the very, very specific things that people will need to see, but like maybe like how you structured the article and like anything interesting.
Yeah, so the context of this is we were trying to time this when we came out with PlanetScale Metal, which does things very differently than most cloud databases. Most cloud databases are on network attached storage, which we do as well, but we also have ones in the big cloud providers that have direct attached SSDs, right? Which is kind of a unique thing, but it provides really good performance for our customers. And we've had like a lot of incredible stories. So this was all about I/O devices to kind of celebrate like, hey, we're launching this cool new thing. And let's also provide, we mentioned Metal a couple times in the blog, but for the most part, we're not talking about the product. It's just, we're providing cool educational value in an interactive way about this stuff. And so like even that first visual up there at the top, right, that's kind of inspired by, the same bouncing balls. It's a bouncing squares instead, right? But like one of the things that actually, if you're going to do something interactive, it's very nice to have something that quickly grabs people's attention, right? Because if you just go to a page and see like a wall paragraph of text, like, let's be honest, 90% of people like read a paragraph and like, oh shoot, this is too much, or I have to go do something else or whatever, right? And then leave. But this is a way to like very quickly like that actually, and again, I know if you're listening, it's a visual that basically visualizes the latency of an NVMe read on local disk versus a network attached read. And it kind of grabs your attention. You're like, oh, am I going to learn about this in the article, right? Like, and so that's kind of the goal of doing something like that. It's like instant education, but also like attracting your attention. And then we get into kind of the actual details of the blog, right? So if you go down, essentially what I did is, and this took a while. So, if you're going to do something like this, brace yourselves for a lot of work, but essentially visualizing, like it was kind of supposed to be like a brief history of how we have stored things in computers, like in a permanent way. And so some of the earlier versions of like hard drives were these big tape systems, right? So I wrote a little simulator for tape systems where the spindles spin back and forth and you can see tape reads and writes happening. I actually have a good friend who works on tape systems for one of the big tape companies. So it was kind of fun to like get to talk to him about real tape systems sometimes. So this is incredible, fun, right? But like just this one, right? This took like many, many hours to like get this simulation down and make it look good in light mode and dark mode, and to like make it work on all browsers. Like there's all these like fiddly things, right, that take a while to do. But yeah, like just this, and again, like most people look at this and they're like, I have never seen this in a blog before, right? Like, yeah. or maybe they have if they've been to Sam Rose or someone like that. But so yeah, and then you go down the list, and then there's another, we talk about this, and there's ways to look at the timing of latencies for reads and writes, and you can kind of interact with it. And then it's essentially similar for like you do this on this version of it, and then there's another section below that's kind of the same thing, but simulating hard drive, spinning disk hard drives. If you go down to kind of the next section, or we could linger here, and then we do the same for SSDs. So.
Yeah.
So just, and that's kind of the interesting thing too, is a lot of what this one was about is like learning how these things work. But I love to talk about latencies because that's what PlanetScale is known for, very low latency databases. And so when you're talking about the timing of things, it's like we could just draw pictures of this, but what if we used actual human time to measure it, right? So a lot of these visuals, like you can click on a button and it shows you like how long this thing actually takes, and you have to wait there and sit and watch the device, do the read or do the write. So that was kind of a fun aspect of this. It's like a play on time almost. Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, wow. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Oh, you said you hadn't actually looked at this one before, right? Or maybe not
this is
gone
the
all
one
the
I
way
haven't
through it.
seen. It's like, no. This is the one I haven't. Yeah, this is just incredible. Yeah. Wow, I don't even know how you would get this working on mobile.
The other thing too, so for those who do visual stuff, data visualizations, all of these visuals were built with D3.js, which I will say is a huge abuse of D3.js because it's really meant for like data viz or doing line plots and all of this kind of stuff. And I basically just used its tweening functionality to, simulate hard drive disks and stuff like that. So
it's absolutely incredible. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, just like I'm kind of reinforcing throughout the whole blog, like I'm giving this history, but we're also talking about the latencies of devices. So I'm trying to like reinforce these points. And again, as someone who is, I am in like technical marketing, right? So as I'm writing this, I am thinking like one of the points I'm trying to drill home is like you want as low latency as possible, especially in the database world, right? This is a core piece of infrastructure for companies from a startup that just started yesterday to the hyperscalers, right? Like latency is bad. We want to get rid of it. So I'm like driving this point home the whole time, the very same week that we launch an ultra low latency database product, right? So it's kind of like you're almost building a narrative. It's a true narrative. I'm not lying to you, but like that's kind of a part of what you need to do, right? You need to like build a narrative for your audience and be like, hey, you want to eliminate latency. And we have these like very engaging visuals that show that. And as you can see, it's very long, so you just keep scrolling forever.
Yeah, this is like honestly unbelievable amount of stuff in there. It's like incredible.
Yeah. And this is even something unique. So like that little visual you were just on there, there's this concept when you're using EBS, which that's like, if you're in AWS running servers there, most of your computers store things on EBS volumes. It's a network attached volume. But there's this concept of you have a limited number of IOPS, but you also get this burst balance where you can sort of accumulate IO operations in a little like bank. And then if you need to burst and do a bunch of IO to disk, you can like use your reserved IOPS. But it's a concept like I think a lot of people, unless you're like a hardcore AWS engineer, just don't know about. And so not only do we talk about it, but I kind of visualize like if you slide that slider all the way to the bottom, you have this like bank of IOPS that like slowly starts to, that way on that side. Yeah. It like slowly starts to accumulate. And this is visually like, this is what's happening in AWS. It's just an integer counter or whatever, but I'm like visualizing it and showing you like, hey, if your server isn't doing many IO operations, you're going to build up a balance of IO that you can then use later. Again, it's just this like one of these niche little concepts in AWS that a lot of people don't know. And I got to visualize it in a fun way. And then if you suddenly slide it to the other side, you'll start to see that, okay, now my server's doing lots of IO and I'm draining the IO balance that I have, right?
That's very cool. It's like it's like in breaks or whatever, like almost like is that the regenerative? That's what it reminds me of. Yeah. Very cool.
So all of this was, again, like this wasn't literally 6 months of just me writing this blog. There's lots of other stuff I did in the meantime, but this one was unique in that because we had this delay in when we were launching, I had started it and it didn't get launched till 6 months later. And so I had time to really like refine it and go back and forth with it, which was fun.
It's actually fun because I feel like most people say like, don't, put like a CTA in your article, but there is like a very strong, at the bottom, it is a very strong, like, the solution is metal.
Yeah.
PlanetScale just, it works so well because like, it's like if you were all the effort put into this article and there's like so much in there and it's like, people understand the challenges, I guess.
Right. Yeah. Like you can tell we're not BSing you. Like, you know, I'm not saying I'm the world expert in latency, but I did lots of research. I had our engineers review this, right? Like we put a lot of effort into trying to teach you like how latency works in the cloud and a little bit of the history of it. And then we're like, hey, like we have something that solves this problem. So if any of this struck a chord with you, like you should look at Metal. And of course, like when we launched, there was a banner at the top of our website, so you saw it when you first showed up and all that. But yeah,
this is great. This makes total sense. Like as well, like that's in this case, like that it because it is, I guess, the solution. I need to read the article, but yeah,
it's a good long read. So only read it if you have a lot of time. But you can also just go through and click buttons and have fun.
True, which is very fun so far. Okay, that was amazing. Is there anything else you want to tell us about this article, about like the creation or like any fun stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it was, this is one of those things that I think Sam, our CEO, kind of had the original idea for this and was like, hey, Ben, it would be really cool. Like he had seen what I'd done before and was like, we're doing this Metal thing. It'd be cool if you did a blog that talked about devices and latency and all this kind of stuff and really drove the point home. But then after that, it was like, we trust you, Ben. Go figure it out and do something cool. Which is awesome, right? Like I got a lot of time to just like tinker with things and think about like what would be a cool way to express this. And this one in particular, I think this is my favorite one that I've ever done. And I know it's like, okay, vanity metrics and all this stuff, but like this article, the day, it was a couple days after we launched, did really well on social media and all that, right? Got lots of likes, but this went to the front page of Hacker News, the Orange website, which some people have mixed feelings about. But the fact of the matter is, lots of traffic was driven to our website, right? Like many tens of thousands of, even just within the first couple of days, like page views of people coming to our website. And again, we're educating, we're trying to provide like real good value here, but also they're seeing like, oh, PlanetScale, they have this new product. They're a fast database, right? And like it doesn't matter if you're an engineer at a small company, the founder, the CEO, whatever, like you want that, right? Like one of the hardest things, like if you're Google, everyone already knows what Google is. If you're Amazon, AWS, every engineer already knows what AWS is. So one of your hardest challenges from the marketing perspective is how do people know you exist and then start to know what is your product and then start to know what problems you solve. And so even though this might seem like, oh, it's just Hacker News and whatever, this is helping solve that problem for PlanetScale. I mean, lots of people know what PlanetScale is, but there's some that don't, right? And so every time we can build trust with the audience by giving them really good education, and then, let them see our website, let them see our incredible products, like that helps the company grow and succeed.
I felt like this was a good summary of it as well. I was like, can I just say that I love how informative this was, that I completely forgot it was to promote a product.
Yes,
Excellent
I remember that comment. Yeah,
interactivity.
I was actually my favorite comment too. Yeah, I was like, oh, that's exactly what I was going for. And you expressed it so beautifully. Yeah.
This is marketing.
Yeah. For those just listening on audio, yeah, there's a comment right at the top of the Hacker News and it says, it's so good I forgot that you were like marketing a product to me. And I'm like, yes, that was the goal. Yeah.
Amazing. I think we're coming to the time, Ben. This was incredible. You're doing amazing work in terms of marketing, amazing work in terms of just putting amazing stuff out into the world. So it was really fun to just hear a little bit behind it. So it was an episode I wanted to do for ages. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jack. This was a lot of fun. I enjoyed talking with you about all this nerdy stuff. So appreciate it.
Amazing. And congratulations on doing so well. PlanetScale. People should go check it out. Metal, Postgres.
Yeah, go to planetscale.com. That's what I'll leave you with. Check out our really fast databases.